everything, or you say you can't feel a single thing, say you didn't.
Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's nyfw. Make sure you like and subscribe. Go follow my Instagram and TikTok. So in the spirit of New York Fashion Week and all the TikTok and reels showing what everyone is wearing going to New York Fashion Week, I thought I would make a video about New York Fashion Week and how it created fast fashion and how it is making it harder to push sustainability. And I also had 2 tickets to be front row at New York Fashion Week, but I had a show that same day. I also did not have the money to go for a plane ticket from LA to New York. I've been thinking about this for a while, especially with like Fashion Week fatigue. I feel like it's always Fashion Week. I feel like I'm constantly in this loop on TikTok and reels of just like fashion content. I mean, like, I enjoy fashion content. At the same time, I just feel like it's just always having to do with New York Fashion Week or Fashion Week of some sort. And I don't want to come off like saying like I hate Fashion Week, because that's not like the point, but I think it's more to be aware of what Fashion Week like enables or what like it captures and stuff like that. And I would still love to be in New York Fashion Week. I think it would be a great experience, but it is somewhat underwhelming sometimes, like looking at like fashion runways and stuff. Like, I love fashion, I love all of it, I love the glitz and the glam, I love the experience, but I've just been feeling this way for a while looking at Fashion Week. I just feel like New York Fashion Week has become so dull, and it's like the same outfits regurgitated over and over, not necessarily on the runway, but like kind of on the runway, but just like really Bieber clones, and just they're always being pushed on my For You page. And I don't really think like anyone has like their own individual style that much anymore. I feel like that just comes with like the fast fashion overtaking everything and just TikTok like dictating every single thing that we do in pop culture pretty much. This detail of New York Fashion Week always stood out to me, which is the frequency of Fashion Week, whether it's in Milan, London, or LA. The seasons are always really quick and very short, especially now. When I was a merchandiser at Forever 21, we would always prepare for the next season months ahead, and even that was like too slow. Trend forecast like keeps shrinking every year, and like all of these latte, brown sugar, butter, French toast, tomato girl shit like isn't helping anything, because these are like super niche micro trends that are literally gone within a month or two. Like, aesthetics are gone as soon as like you blink, pretty much. Like, these micro niche aesthetics are still like the very, I guess, like mainstream aesthetics. Like, you know, fairy core is one that's really popular right now. Coquette, I don't know why my For You page is like just coquette and the reels are coquette, and there's like different subgroups in coquette, like dollette and stuff like that, but that's a different video. I feel like we're just always in Fashion Week. Like, when are we not in Fashion Week? The fashion industry itself is just a very heavy polluter, and the climate is literally going to kill us, and a lot of activists have like spoken up about New York Fashion Week and its practices. So I found this article that I feel like was very insightful about New York Fashion Week. It says that the shows create enormous quantities of waste, and flying attendees to show around the world. The shows around the world generates enough carbon emissions to power 42,000 homes for a year. And we see this with like celebrities in their private jets as well, and then flying all these influencers to New York. If you've ever been to New York, it's already very crowded. So then having all of these other people, and just like imagine like you're someone who just lives there and is just trying to get to work. I know a lot of people are like, it's just really annoying when Fashion Week happens, because there are actually people that are just trying to work their normal jobs. It's the same thing, I guess, kind of like out here in Echo Park or like LA, when there's like a Dodgers game or whatever, and just like everyone's just, it's just crazy, and I hate it. It says, but this is the least of our problems. The real issue with Fashion Week is that it's meant to artificially cultivate trends, signal that the previous season's clothing is obsolete. This philosophy trickles down throughout the entire history, empowering fast fashion brands to churn out new clothes at increasing velocity to the tune of 150 billion garments a year. To create a more sustainable fashion industry, we need to rethink more than the logistics of Fashion Week. We need to rethink its purpose altogether. So I think we need to like look at how Fashion Week even started and what the purpose was before it became what we know it is today. So in the late 1800s, designers and department stores developed fashion shows to introduce wealthy consumers to upcoming designs. In 1943, in the thick of the Second World War, the American fashion industry decided to create the first official Fashion Week to support American designers and make it easier to the fashion press to see all of their collections at the same time. The purpose of these shows are primarily for buyers of stores, etc., of what to buy for the following year/season. Paris, Milan, and London would also also participate, and obviously LA is thrown in there eventually. I think that this is important to understand that fashion shows were primarily used for buyers, people who have this occupation as buyers who would buy for other brands and stuff, but it says that obviously it was like also for the wealthier people that can buy straight from the runway. And it says suddenly designers were expected to create at least 2 collections a year, and each needed to be dramatic, unexpected, and different from what came before. Fashion buyers would attend these shows to decide what pieces to order for their boutiques in the upcoming season. In the late 80s, fast fashion brand Zara entered the mix. They had built the technology to create fashion-forward garments quickly and cheaply to decide what pieces to manufacture. Fast fashion designers paid close attention to what was happening on the runways, taking note of the color palettes and silhouettes to inform the new collections. They were also notorious for ripping off entire outfits. So that's also the problem with fashion industry in general, not just with like fashion week, but just like having the high couture brands, right, set kind of like the standard, and it gets lower down, and then fast fashion retailers and manufacturers start just ripping off these high couture kind of things to make it easier and accessible, and obviously to make them a lot more money. Everything you thought that was hot is now in the clearance bin, which is kind of like what I've seen after 21. Like the things that are supposed to be cute and edgy and new and trending, I knew I wasn't going to pay full price for that, and I'd wait for it to go in the clearance. Like I knew exactly what trends would go in the clearance bin, because it's just a trend, and it's not something that would stay longer than its time being bought. The cycle just continues after that. It just constantly continues, and then we have like this overproduction of just a bunch of clearance stuff on the racks that no one wants to buy. So it says, as more designers have done shows for fashion weeks in London, Paris, Milan, and New York, they've had to pour more resources into showmanship and spectacle to get attention. As New York Fashion Week begins, we've yet to see what kind of eye-popping shows fashion houses have in store for us. So in many ways, Fashion Week laid the foundation for the rise of fast fashion. In 4 decades later, fast fashion dominates the fashion industry, turning out billions of pieces of cheap clothing for the masses. It goes from Target to Walmart to Forever 21 to Shein. You have brands like Wild Fable, which is Target's brand, and Walmart. Obviously, Shein is one of the #1 fast fashion brands there is right now. Of course, there's Fashion Nova as well, Tiger Mist, and all of these cute little trendy brands. In order to keep consumers buying more, these brands must constantly come up with fashionable new pieces, and many of these trends originate with the runway shows, like I was saying earlier. So the fashion industry machinery works so seamlessly now that we just don't even recognize that like it's actually there. You have people that are constantly saying what is in, what is out, what is trending, what is not. A lot of the masses tend to follow this, and they will tend to cycle out according to the trend. But I will mention that a lot of times this only pertains to people who are of the middle class, because lower class, obviously you just need things to wear that are practical and that are garments. But when you get upper middle class, these things are a little bit more important, because it relates to how you look, how people perceive you, your class, or you trying to make yourself seem like you're of a higher class by wearing these brands. Like I was at the EBT office with my partner, trying to get him to sign up for it, and we saw this girl, and she had like a Chanel bag, Dior shoes, and just like Miu Miu, like a dress. I was like, wow, that's crazy, because you don't know anyone's situation, and if you just saw them on the street, I would just assume that they had money because of the brands that they wear. And a lot of people do choose having these brand names to make it seem like they are of a higher class. And that's why fashion is so important, because it also, not only does it let us express ourselves, but it also can show like our class and really dictate how people perceive us. But again, that's like, I think that is like a privilege to be able to express yourself through clothing and fashion, because obviously someone that is more worried about feeding their family and putting food on the table is probably not going to worry about what is the latest trend in New York Fashion Week. Before this fast fashion shift, people expected their clothes to be long lasting. Now, especially back then, like the 50s and 60s, that's why everyone's like, oh, it's so quality, and why a lot of their stuff lasts a long time. Like this is from the 60s, like a little dust coat, and obviously it's lasted a while. And even some of my grandmother's garments are very well made. Going back to 1943, when the first fashion week took place, consumers were buying a fraction of the garments they purchase today. It was way more expensive to make clothing back then, since manufacturers weren't using overseas labor, which is usually more cheaper and inexpensive materials. So people had different expectations like for what they should pay for clothes. And in 1950, people spent 12% of their income on clothing. By 2020, it was only 2.3%. It's no surprise then that the number of clothes we own today has grown exponentially. So now we have to like think about, Is it possible to have a fashion industry that isn't premised on making existing clothes you own seem obsolete? And the author of this article believes that it is, and it says that the internet has enabled multiple aesthetics to coexist. Take a look at style influencers on Instagram and TikTok. They offer a myriad of different looks, from classic chic to futuristic Y2K styles. We lived in a world where we all bought high quality clothes that we loved and styles that allow us to express who we are and just held them on to years. Wouldn't that be like better or more practical? I think we also need to take a look at this, because seeing New York Fashion Week as performance art is really what it comes down to, because now it's become more of a spectacle more than the garments being worn. Designers can continue to do this kind of conceptual work while making the classic pieces their brand that their brands are known for. For example, when consumers are looking to buy iconic pieces from luxury brands like Chanel's tweed jackets and Burberry's trench coat, the key would be for the fashion industry, and especially fast fashion brands, to recognize that these shows are performance art, and that's what they are. And with this knowledge, maybe the shows would need to happen on a runway, which I personally don't think that's plausible, because it's still a fashion show and it should be held on a runway. But I do understand like the performance art. I feel like we would have to go under like a very big rebrand, and people need to understand what the purpose of Fashion Week is. And the article ends, "We invented Fashion Week 80 years ago, and it's possible to reinvent it for the 21st century." I think that is the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what your thoughts are on Fashion Week and just the fashion industry in general. I still would love to be part of New York Fashion Week. I've been involved with LA Fashion Week, walked LA Fashion Week, DJ'd LA Fashion Week, so I think that it would still be a good experience. But also the fashion industry has a lot of work to do to be able to be a more sustainable kind of art form. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
I don't know.